Typically, mountain biking YouTubers take some things about viewers for granted. Some assume you've got a lot of spare cash to buy new bikes and lots of gear. Some assume you have access to bike parts or gnarly downhill action. There are a lot of assumptions. One big one is that you're not new to this, that you've been around a while and you know all about the bikes you ride or want to. Now this video is different. If you're an expert already, it might be redundant. I don't know, maybe you like to watch me fumble around. If so, cool. If you're a beginner, someone that's thinking about getting into mountain biking, you're the target of this video. So welcome. Let's get started. This is a mountain bike. This is a mountain bike. This is a mountain bike. There are two main types of mountain bikes. You have a hardtail and you have a full suspension. The difference being, this is your suspension right here. So you got a front suspension, you got a rear suspension. Makes the rear wheel go up and down, makes it more comfortable. They can be made of steel, aluminum, carbon fiber, or even titanium. The difference between them is the suspension components that will make the bike more capable and comfortable. Hardtails are the least expensive and pretty much where most people start. Now, starting at the front, we have forks. This is a rigid fork. Why is it rigid? Well, it doesn't have a suspension. And yes, I know this isn't a mountain bike. This is actually my old city single-speed Mongoose. It's still a pretty sweet bike, and old guy, I don't throw anything out. This is a front suspension fork. There's a Fox, there's RockShox, there's a couple different brands. Even the least expensive bikes come with some sort of suspension fork at this point. Now for the rear shock, on a full suspension bike, here it is right here. You get one of these on a full suspension bike and there are two main types. You have an air shock and a coil shock. Coil's made more for downhill bikes and it's generally heavier duty and heavier in weight. I don't have one of those because I don't do downhill. So this is a typical air shock. Maybe slightly above typical, but this is what you can expect. This and this are very much related. Next up, we have wheels. You got two of them, right? Bicycle, bi meaning two. Got your front wheel and you got your rear wheel. Here is a wheel. Now wheels come in a couple different parts. Now when we say wheel, we mean the whole thing. But we have a rim right here, we got a hub right here, and we got a tire right here. And the tire could be tubeless, or it could have a tube in it. Tubes are heavier, but generally easier to work with. Attached to the hub and the rim, we have spokes. Pretty much all bikes come with spokes. This is a quick release wheel. You can see it's a quick release right here. It stays attached to the wheel and it goes in a fork and you attach it like that. More modern bikes and more expensive bikes will have something called a through axle. So instead of the quick release here, it has an axle that goes through this hole, out this hole, and it actually tightens right onto your fork. So there's a screw on it and you tighten it up. It's like a big bolt going through your wheel that tightens it up. That's the through axle. Next up, brakes. Now, I have three different kinds of brakes to show you. Some are more typical than others, but you're gonna get some variation of this on your bike. More expensive bikes will have hydraulic front brakes, which you can see over here. Hydraulic meaning that there's liquid in there and the liquid goes through the caliper, and as you pull it, it tightens the brake pad onto the disc brake. What do we mean by disc brake? Well, remember on the wheel, we got a disc. Close-up of a disc brake right here. There we go. There are two different kinds of disc brakes. We have the hydraulic disc brake, and we also have something called the mechanical disc brake. So what's the difference? Well, it's right there in the name, mechanical. So instead of hydraulics, this actually has a cable right here. Brake pads grab onto the rotor and stops it. So you can track that right along. So it's the same thing. It's got a caliper. See right there. You pull that, your brake stops. Look at that. So you can see it working here. And these are on, again, like beginner bikes. And there's nothing wrong with mechanical disc brake. In fact, some people in colder climates like mechanical disc brakes because they don't lose any pressure, they don't lose any power, and they're pretty simple to use. These have been on this bike for like, I don't know, 20 years. I've adjusted them twice and they just work. We also have something called the V-brakes. You can see this is a V-brake right here. V-brakes are typically on, lower end bikes, beginner bikes or kids bikes. You can see right there, it's a mechanical connection and it pulls the two together and it goes right on the wheel. So it stops right on the wheel. So it's friction that stops that. It's a mechanical connection, pretty easy to maintain, and you know, they're cheap. Next up, we're going to talk about your cockpit, which is really the front end of your bike. You got a couple of things here. You got your headset right here that the fork goes through. You got your stem that attaches to the fork. You got your handlebars on top. You got your grips over here, and then you have all your controls. You got a shifter, you got a dropper seat post, and you got your brake levers. I mean, everything's all right there. So, I mean, that's why they call it a cockpit. Sometimes you'll have some tools going through your fork, like this guy right here. Next up, let's talk about your drivetrain. It all starts down here. Right in here, we have something called a bottom bracket. All right, that's how your cranks attach. So it goes through the bottom bracket, and then it's able to rotate like that. Next up, cranks. We got crank arms, and then you have the chain ring that attaches to it, that attaches to the chain that makes the bike go. Pretty easy, right? Back here, we got a rear cassette. Comes with a whole bunch of different gears. You got your shifter up front, and you hit that, it makes the rear derailleur, or if you're European, derailleur, it makes it move. That makes the chain ride up and down on your gears back here to make you go faster or slower. I mean, it makes sense, right? Now, while we're talking about the drivetrain and transmission of a bike, I already mentioned the rear derailleur, which is back here. Causes your chain to ride up along your cassette. Now, some older bikes and some bikes that are a little bit less expensive, they'll come with something called a front derailleur. It's a lot more rare when you start moving up with your mountain bike selection, but this has 3 chain rings instead of just the one, and it has a mechanical front derailleur, again, derailleur for you Euros out there, that kicks the chain over and onto a bigger chain ring. So that gives you more gear. So essentially, this is 3 different chain rings up here on the front derailleur, and it gives you 3 times as many more, you know, gear choices on your bike. It's less common now because it's heavier, and newer bikes have much larger cassettes. This one only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This only has 7 on the rear cassette, where the other bikes have 12. So, I mean, it makes a huge difference. And also the cassette, you can see right here, it stops there. We're talking up to there. We're talking 52 to 54 teeth. This is nowhere close. What that does is that helps you climb better. The more teeth in the rear means you can get to a smaller gear, which means that your bike will just move a hell of a lot slower, but it's also going to climb a lot better, especially if you're going up a really steep hill. That's what you want. Now, we got 2 different kinds of seat posts as well. We got a rigid seat post, or fixed, which doesn't move up or down while you're riding the bike. Now, of course, you can take this right here and you undo that, and then you can make it go up and down, right? Now, this is the other type of seat post right here. It's called a dropper post. Why do we call it that? Well, because it can drop down or it can pop up. So what you want to do is you drop it down when you're going, you know, down a steep hill, and you want to be able to get your weight back there so you don't go over the bars. Then you can raise it up when you're in your climb. This is a bit more advanced, and again, it's really useful, and I think once you've used one, you might not go back. And up here we have your seat. Or your saddle. Again, it's the same thing. Some people call it a saddle. I think that's more of a roadie thing, not a mountain bike thing. I just call it a seat. I'm old. I can call it whatever I want. This is where you put your butt. It's pretty important, right? Guy right here comes with what they call clipless pedals. Now, there are a couple of different kinds of clipless pedals. These are Crank Brothers egg beaters. I just prefer them. But the reason called clipless is because when riders and road bikes, you know, way back when they switch from flat pedals to toe clips, which is a mechanical device that you slip your toes into, those were called clips. You were, you know, clipped in. Old term. Now we call them clipless, even though you're really clipped in. It's just the way it is, man. Now, there are also hybrids where one side is flat and one side has a clip, and that's good if you're going to use your bike in different situations. If you're just going to, I don't know, take it to the grocery store, or, you know, head down to 7-Eleven and get a Slurpee, you can just go in anything, right? Just regular shoes, sneakers, whatever. And then the other side, you'll have a clip so you can go hit the trail. That's pretty much it. Those are the things that make up a complete mountain bike. So if you're still with me, I hope you learned some things or maybe entertained a little. If you have more questions or want to yell at me, drop a comment below. If I missed something important, again, let me know. Maybe we'll do a follow-up or we'll just answer it in the comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you out on the trail.